There is one street in Silent Hill, a dark, almost never-ending stretch of tarmac on the northernmost side of South Vale, probably the only road in the series that even the most casual of fans would remember subconsciously in case they're ever asked about it in a hospital elevator or something. This street stands on its own, almost hugging the water of Toluca Lake, and is abnormally disconnected from the branching lanes and labyrinths that occupy the town centre. More than anything else, however, the things that can be seen here and the horrors associated with them are ultimately the reasons why it's remembered fondly as Silent Hill's most prolific road.
Now for our third and final question. South of the lake is a deserted old neighborhood called South Vale. From there to Pale Vale, the central resort area northwest of the lake, there's only one road you can take. Just one road, no more. The third and final question is, what is the name of that road?
First appearing in Silent Hill 2, the avenue was named after the American poet and novelist Robert Nathan, whose works inspired many of the lyrical methods and supernatural elements present in these games. The lyricism of Silent Hill 2's coin puzzle and the piano puzzle from Silent Hill 1 are examples of this. The novels Portrait of Jenny and Long After Summer are noted as the predominant inspirations to the game's story. Making a swift return in Silent Hill 3, Heather and Douglas stay overnight at Jack's Inn upon their arrival. This is a motel stationed directly south of Nathan Avenue. Unfortunately, we can actually come here as James, but there are no vacancies. There is a save point in the car park though, insinuating a point of interest, even though it's difficult to find and there's no reason to ever come here as James in the second game. James finds himself on this very same road throughout as we explore and uncover the story. Every important stop in the game, from Rosewater Park to Pete's Bolorama, from the Historical Society and eventually Toluca Lake, they're all accessed from Nathan Avenue. On top of everything that I aim to cover in this video, it leaves us to wonder if there's an underlying supernatural intent behind this place. The coincidences with James's revelations in the story, and how it all circles back to this one place. James narrates the reading of Mary's letter for the first time at the observation deck. This is, of course, on Nathan Avenue. Our first encounter with an enemy, following it until it leads us to a dark tunnel. I didn't know about this one until recently, but just check the map and see for yourself. These are just a few examples of those that I'm about to detail in this video, and because it represents the closest possible point to the water, the psychological implications of suicide, of James's ever-growing mental decline, are elevated here. Outside of the main areas of the game, locations such as the hospital or the Lakeview Hotel, which are only more successful at obtaining an overt reaction out of James because they relate unconditionally to Mary while she was alive, are locations where Mary either died or considered her special place. The town's efforts are in full display here. It's a place where many have lost their lives by various means. I will primarily focus on the mysteries of and surrounding Nathan Avenue, as well as any secrets and other horror elements that often go unnoticed. Dead bodies are a staple of Silent Hill 2. They are used scarcely yet conveniently throughout. From the body in the apartment buildings, to Eddie's imaginary but otherwise consequential victims of the Historical Society. On a side note, I actually love Eddie as a character, and anyone who bullies him deserved what was coming to them. It's the oddity of each interaction that makes him stand out. This soul can be found at the westernmost edge of Nathan Avenue, marking the point where it breaks off into an endless pit and we can no longer proceed. A small map lies beside him, detailing the location of Pete's Bolorama a mile or so down the road. The yellowing of the map and the state of the body indicate that he was here for quite a while. Other than that though, there's not much context as to how this man died or his affiliation with Silent Hill. There's no dialogue option even. A recurring sentiment with many of the dead bodies we see is that they all dress and look like James, but it's the way that these bodies are obscured that suppress alarm and trepidation out of James. Just like Eddie, James knows that he killed his wife deep down. He knows that these bodies are manifestations of his guilt and are hinting at James to answer the obvious question. He needs to have an ounce of plausible deniability to remain in this congruent fugue state, fueled by his ego, his delusions, his doubts.
I'm looking for someone.
Who is it?
Someone very important to me.
to build up tension until the final act of the game where James realizes the weight of his actions. The body on the chair in the Woodside Apartments depicts James after watching the videotape in the hotel and a plausible response afterward. This one here, I'm not sure, but I have a theory. Because these bodies act as guides, in this case hinting at a stop by Pete's Bolorama, their pizza must be to die for. I think it suggests that Eddie is very dangerous. The injury on his chest looks like a bullet wound to me. Is this the state that Eddie would have left us in had he won the fight? If so, that's very disturbing. The spots detailed in the map are all steps required to reach the Historical Society. That's very weird since Pete's Bolorama is an early game area. It should be telling us how to get to the hospital from here. It's because Eddie doesn't have any connection to the hospital or his health in general, to be completely honest. Thus, the map credits the theory that it's explicitly guiding us towards danger or potentially warning us. Another small theory is that this was intended to portray James's reaction after killing Eddie himself. The town is committed to punishment and reflection. Suicide is a more effective measure than murder. There's little significance, and most importantly, there's no confession. It's much more likely that the map was leading James to Eddie, knowing that we would have to kill another human being, and James would finally accept his fate. As far gone as he is by this point, it was another failed attempt. Not even murdering another person was enough to spark his memory from 3 years ago.
Eddie? I killed a human being.
After witnessing Maria die at the hospital at the hands of Pyramid Head, James was close. After killing Eddie in the Historical Society, his reaction was even stronger, evident by the Pyramid Head fight near the end where two of them are now present. This portrays Eddie's death as at least comparable to Mary's in terms of how much it affected James subconsciously. So my final conclusion is this: the body stays here at the edge of the world, showing James had he turned around in that moment, instead of taking the boat across Toluca Lake. In the Historical Society car park, there's a blocked off entrance leading to the boat launch. Where does this lead to? Maybe the same dock that we used to cross the lake after killing Eddie. As it stands, it's closed off. The camera perspective changes as we get closer to it, drawing our eyes towards the main topic of this mystery, and another possible indicator of James's deteriorating optimism at this point in the story: the tire tracks. These tire tracks extend throughout Nathan Avenue at various points: Texan gas station, Pete's Bolorama. Eventually this lake entrance is where it fades off into the darkness of the lakeside woodlands entirely, never to be seen again. Even when we make it to the other side, there isn't a road that connects to this boat launch, so we can only speculate about what really happened to this car or the person driving it. Does it lead directly into the lake? Is the person still alive? At the nearby park, there's a memorial by the beach that reads, "In memory of the 67 people who died of illness and now sleep beneath the lake." Maybe this was one of the victims. The backgrounds of these 67 people are revealed in a painting at the Historical Society, Brookhaven Hospital, 1880. The hospital was built in response to a Great Plague that followed a wave of immigration to this area. It was originally little more than a shack, but it gradually grew and grew. This record provides more context regarding the time period and the initial development of Silent Hill in the 19th century. To state the obvious, there weren't any cars in 1880. The person driving this wasn't stricken with disease or illness. But the terminology of the memorial is way more disturbing when we compare it to Mary and Nathan Avenue. The theory that these are the same victims, the bodies of the 67 victims that were dumped into the lake, is incredibly supported by the fact that it was commonplace in this time period, yet increasingly unacceptable throughout the 20th century. Also, a creepy billboard advertising the Historical Society on Nathan Avenue reads as follows: "Silent Hill Historical Society, the early days of Toluca, the stories of the truth, Nathan Avenue." This could be foreshadowing the In Water ending where James and Mary add to this list. Because of Mary's terminal illness and James's mental illness, it's not specified that it was the plague in this memorial. It only says illness. I believe that there were only 65 victims of the plague. The 66th and 67th victims, however, are James and Mary. These 65 victims can be seen jumping out of the lake towards James, trying to almost pull him under. Again, this only happens in Nathan Avenue, the closest point to the lake. This is the most disturbing detail in the entire series for me personally. In summary, these tire tracks don't actually exist. It's yet another ploy by the town to drag James into the lake by car. It's the method that he ultimately decides to go with in the in-water ending. The theory that Mary's body is in the trunk of the car is also heavily supported by this evidence. That's why the song Angels Thanatos is played during this ending, because it's the only heavy metal song. It's industrial, much like the town in general, representing weight. Like a giant red anchor, it's pulling James to the bottom of Toluca Lake. The words Angels Thanatos meaning angel's death, or James killing Mary. I was going to make an entire video on the billboards of Nathan Avenue, then decided to reluctantly include them in this video instead. They range from promoting the numerous small businesses of Silent Hill, more specifically those in South Vale. Some are just weird and some are outright terrifying. Baby and kids, blood-stained Lakeview Hotel advertisements, a pet clinic open for an hour and a half a week, and the list goes on. Whether or not these have any significance in the story, I have no idea, but I'd like to think so. The Eddie Pizza mystery is legendary at this point. Up until now, I didn't know that there was a pizza place around not named All Stars Pizza in Silent Hill or the surrounding area, but there is. Andy's Pizza. Free delivery at 0000000. Come on down and take a bite, mate. This is the billboard that made me initially skeptical of their authenticity. I'll get around to others that are even more uncanny than this, but it's less like something you'd see on a billboard and more like something you'd materialize in a dream. That thing on the right, does the P stand for pizza or does it stand for pedophile? Call this obvious fake number and find out today. Words can't explain how weird this makes me feel. Needless to say, this place doesn't exist on the map in any Silent Hill game. Places like Happy Burger, Gonzalez Mexican Restaurant, the infamous Neely's Bar, Cafe Mist, Cafe Texan, and no sign of an Andy's Pizza. It's not real, it's a fictional collective of subliminal images brought forth by James's stop at Pete's Bolorama. When James's brain draws a blank, we get billboards like this one. One of my personal favourites. It's a placeholder ad that none of the other businesses had an interest in, supposedly. Why is that? Maybe the section of Nathan Avenue was a deterrent for any potential customers. Well, for one, this is very close to the Historical Society and is also right next to another billboard that's easily missable because it's been knocked down. I don't know what could have caused this, but whatever it was enough to discourage the interest of opportunistic businesses. Terminology could also be a message directly foreshadowing James's fate, a dead, forgotten beacon in the middle of nowhere. It's no coincidence that the forest billboard is the closest to the lake of all of them, a few meters down the street, next to a disturbing and bloody advert for the Lakeside Amusement Park. A signpost reads, "Toluca Lake, keep the nature." Next to it, an inconspicuous car, license plate 000THZ. What other car has this exact same license plate, do you ask? Not every billboard is directly manifested from James's head, at least not categorically. Silent Hill Fresh Meats is creepy in its own right. It's also the very last billboard, almost stationed where the road breaks off into nothingness. Unlike some of them, most of these are actual shops in South Vale. Silent Hill Tavern, Giga Microsystems. I've already talked about Jack's Inn and Texan Gas Station. The Dance Company, Baby and Kids Superstore, Pet Center, Dry Cleaners, Quiet Cocktails. 90% of these are found on Neely Street by the Grand Market specifically. The only one that's relevant to the story appears multiple times, the Lakeview Hotel. Thus, the camera pans into the one that's still standing, the other one in a state of immediate repair, withering away on the ground. These billboards stand as relics of Silent Hill's past. Now they only display a sense of creepiness to the people who drive or walk by them. Before this video ends, I wanted to talk quickly about the obscure horror elements and details of Nathan Avenue that I thought deserved more recognition. Near the Texan gas station, there's some graffiti on a house that states, "Obedience or die." It's only visible with your torch turned off. The traffic signs of Nathan Avenue have weird and contradictory speed limits depending on where you are. These range from 15 to 35 miles per hour, switching between them in intervals, possibly representing a risk of a road accident, further evident by the drift marks where James crashes into the river. Ironically, the billboard for the dry cleaners is the most coated in blood. At the Moon on Street intersection, there is a working traffic light. Wait long enough and you'll be signalled to walk across safely, even though there are no moving cars in Silent Hill. Next time you play, be safe and follow the instructions as intended. James will not acknowledge one side of Nathan Avenue as being blocked off, but there is a secret dialogue option at the western point by the dead man. By heading around the back of Pete's Boulevard after the hospital section, you won't be allowed in the Heaven's Night alleyway at all. There is one billboard that's shared between two businesses, the aforementioned pet centre and an Italian restaurant. Not the best merger I've seen. I think the Historical Society and the Lakeview Hotel should have teamed up and bought the Your Ad billboard personally, or maybe Andy's Pizza and Pete's Boulevard. Heaven's Night has a billboard on Nathan Avenue. This would be illegal in real life as billboards cannot display offensive or mature services. Thanks for watching. If you want a project to be featured on my channel, please feel free to send any suggestions to my email on my About page. The first time I got the Nathan Avenue question on the elevator, I got it wrong, so this is my apology video in a way for tarnishing its legacy.